Take a deep breath. So let me remind you of what you already know. Most professional development in our business is completely useless. You can laugh. How many times have you been in a session like this where the presenter tells you that by and large a day like this has almost no impact on your knowledge base? And if it does change your knowledge base, it rarely transfers from your knowledge base to your practice. And if it doesn't have an impact on your practice, then every one of you knows it has essentially no impact on student achievement. And if it has no impact on student achievement or student growth or student whatever it is, then why are we doing it? Come on, gang, you think that I'm overstating this. Every one of you can think about the pile of workshop handouts sitting in the file cabinet in the back corner of your room gathering dust. You know that. That's where they are. When we go through the motions, we have these sessions, and then, yeah, it doesn't make anything. I don't have to do it. And I think the reason for that is because it's almost impossible to do this by ourselves. The professional isolation that we all suffer under is the single greatest obstacle to moving forward. Come with me to the very best schools I get to, and what I see is people regularly talking, sharing, interacting, walking in and out of each other's classes. This idea that your classroom is your castle is an absurd notion. You rent that space with kids, and I'm the landlord. I'm allowed to walk in there anytime I want and inspect and wander and help and support. And so I want to remind you that it's not about today, but it's about the follow-up. It's not the event. It's not this wonderful party. It's not 1,000 people coming together over 2 days to learn about principles to actions. In my experience, it couldn't be any simpler and it couldn't be any harder. People cannot do and they will not do what they can't envision. If you can't envision what it's like to turn power over the kids, if you can't envision what it's like to have kids actively engaged where you're not in complete control, if you can't envision encouraging the use of multiple representations, you well know it ain't going to happen. You know that people can't do what they don't understand. This is hard stuff. There's an art to teaching and there's a science to teaching. You are not real if you're sitting here going, oh, I love what the ad did. It was all so cool and all so crisp and all so easy. It's not easy. Those are heavy-duty thoughts. We're trying to transfer high-level research into our classrooms where we have 10,000 things to do. You can't do what you don't understand. Why is it we tell kids, go practice? Go practice basketball, go practice soccer, go practice piano, go practice singing, go practice your musical instrument, go practice, go practice. Where do we get a chance to practice when we teach a lesson once a year? And you all know that kids who play soccer and basketball, kids who are doing music and art and drama and all those things, what works is they get feedback. Think about how pitiful the feedback that we get on what we do. Compare and contrast, right? The ridiculousness of evaluation that has to do with a checklist that Charlotte Danielson put together that is more bad than good. And then compare that, right, to what happens when a coach comes in and co-teaches with you and co-plans with you and then debriefs and then discusses, then comes back and watches you do it. And then that's professional development. That's professional growth. We need feedback. And you all know by now that the issue of collaboration and breaking down the isolation is key. And so I would simply like to say to you that as we move to this last few minutes, as we move to this notion of taking action, I beg you, consider the 5 verbs. Ask yourself what you are planning to do this coming school year to help your colleagues envision this quality. Help your colleagues understand why you're doing it, both mathematically and pedagogically. Ask yourself what you're doing to help people practice it. Give people feedback on what they do, and do it collaboratively as the team of second grade teachers. As the intermediate team of 3, 4, 5 coming together. That, to me, is where we begin. 2, so taking action. So here's a list that came from yesterday, and so we put it back up today. All right, I should have made a slide of it, I didn't make a slide of it, I'm not perfect, yay. Where do you go now? Vision, beliefs, mindsets, principles to actions, taking action, the toolkit, resources, and collaborative structures, and then we'll end with questions. So I want you to know that I don't think that most of us operate under a written vision, and I don't understand why. And so you've got that back page in my handout, the first part, okay? We looked at the resources. I want you to flip over that back page, and lo and behold, you have a front and a back that says, thoughts on making inquiry-based, conceptually driven, sense-making mathematics the enacted norm in every mathematics classroom every day. My challenge to you over the next 6 months, I challenge you to work with your school leaders, but mainly with your teacher colleagues. I challenge you to adapt this, to start fresh, or to use this, or to build on this, and build a school vision of effective teaching and learning. I'm in schools that use this to hire people. I'm in schools that say, respond to this and tell me what you don't agree with and decide who will fit in and who will not. I will tell you that I worked on this over the course of a year with 8 teachers in New York City. This is Success Academy. Eva Moskowitz is a force of nature. Eva Moskowitz is the head of the amazing Success Academy charter schools. She said, read the 3rd paragraph. This is Eva, this is my translation of her. The problem we face as a community of teachers and leaders is that our vision is not widely shared. It's not fully understood or even believed by a lot of our teachers and leaders. It's not consistently supported and therefore not consistently implemented in all schools with all kids, that's scholars, all students every day. To begin to address this problem, the chart below briefly summarizes what scholars, teachers, and leaders are and are not doing to make inquiry-based, conceptually driven, sense-making mathematics the enacted norm in every Success Academy math class. Ladies and gentlemen, every single one of you knows that whether it is reading language arts, science, social studies, or math, the essence of helping kids make sense is examples and counterexamples. Examples are great, but I really build understanding when I see the lines and I have a counterexample. This is a quadrilateral, this is not a quadrilateral. Show me a prime number, show me a non-prime number, right? Give me a 3-digit number, now give me a number that is not a 3-digit number. And so I give you a starting place because I'm blunt. Because I think that we need together to recognize that we need to talk to each other openly and honestly. If your kids are not actively engaging in rich problem solving that align with the core, then something's wrong. If as teachers you're not carefully selecting rich tasks, if you're not anticipating the students' responses and strategies, look at the way in which this says students won't unless they're teachers. And then it says teachers won't and can't unless they're leaders. So I've been running around with leaders. Go home and send this to your principal. Go home and say, hey, you know, this was one of the high points of the day. You think we can adapt something like this? You think you can hold up a mirror and look at which ones of us are doing these things and which ones aren't? They are co-teaching lessons because that's what leaders do. 3 principles I talked to today. We talked about videotaping themselves and actually going back and saying, that's the tone. But that's the example. What are the counterexamples? Hey gang, what makes this powerful is that we have a commitment, and we share this with parents. And it says that our students are never solving more than 3 naked problems from a worksheet without the chance to explain their thinking. It says that our students are never listening to explanations by a teacher without interruption. Right? They're not regurgitating procedures to get answers. It says that our teachers are not showing scholars how to solve problems and expecting them to replicate. That's all. I'm simply going to say to you, I think that you know that one of the helpful features in moving this forward is to take these ideas that we've done today and adapt them into a vision. I give you an example to go do that. There it is. Number 2, every one of you knows that the biggest problem is not that people don't care. I'll get this back. The biggest problem is beliefs and mindsets. The biggest problem is that there are people who just don't believe this stuff. I'd like you to turn to page 11 in Principles to Actions. There it is. There are 6 of these tables in this document. There was a point at which there was some initial feedback from NCTM that said, oh, that's just Steve and his committee again. They're just being too blunt. NCTM ICTM can't be that honest. We can't talk about unproductive beliefs. Well, guess what? I simply said, you go tell that person that if you take those tables out, if there's a board vote that says those tables go, I will resign the committeeship and I will badmouth this operation at NCTM everywhere I go as a bunch of cowardly wimps. That's the power I have because I just believe in it. There's a story that'll get told someday about how Susan Jo Russell and I took on the original Common Core State Standards. We thought we had won some things. Out came the January draft. It wasn't in there. Susan Jo and I wrote a 4-page memo, and we threatened to blow the entire thing up. All I can do is tell you that there was a meeting in Washington with Phil Darrow and Jason Zimba and Mike Cohn of Achieve and Jason Zimba, and there was only one question. If we ignored Steve and Susan Jo, can they do us damage? And Phil Darrow said, I know them both. Yes. So what happens if we listen to them? It doesn't make any difference. They're not changing any words. All they're doing is saying that what we asked for in first grade needs to go to second grade. What we have in second grade moves to third grade. In third grade to fourth grade. Don't tell me you can't fight City Hall, gang. Okay? I mean, it's amazing what we can do when there's power in numbers, when they know that we can bring their ship down. And so I say to you, they're in here. These are the best professional development devices all over the country. I see people Xerox this page. And I see them cut these things out into little rectangles and throw them into an envelope. What great discussions. Would you please sort these statements? Left column, right column. Sort them into unproductive, definitely. Productive, probably. Not sure. There's another one of these pages for professionalism, another one for assessment, another one for tools and techniques, right? There's one for assessment, there's one for equity, and that's really direct, okay? Just so you know, again, you know that it's not so much race, but you certainly know that it's other issues right here. I'm now on page, oh my goodness, there it is, 63. On page 63. Students possess different innate levels of ability in mathematics, and these cannot be changed by instruction. I am not really powerful, I am really not useful, and I just can't do anything about the fact that this kid comes to school unprepared. Certain groups or individuals have it, while others don't. It doesn't get any blunter than that, gang, except if I use pejorative terms, but there are people who believe that. They should not be teaching our kids. Conversely, or inversely, or differently, look at that. Mathematics ability is a function of opportunity, experience, and effort. I am important. I am indispensable to these kids' lives. And it is not just me. They have to effort. They have to have a reason to try. There's got to be effort, but I got to provide the effort and the opportunities and the experience. Mathematics teaching and learning cultivate mathematical ability, and all students are capable of participating. And so I just want to remind you that amongst all of this stuff, there are those 6 tables that are beliefs and mindsets, and they are unbelievably powerful tools for having discussions about it. I only look at a teeny sliver of them. What a great way to come back together when you guys say, hey, okay, we had the summer off, remember we were all in Ankeny together, and what did Steve say? What can we do? What do our handouts say? This is what we have to do. This is what we can do before the kids come back. We can do this card sort. We can have a discussion about this. We can try and surface the fact that if you don't believe that all kids can learn and the things that are in this book are real and important, then you know we have a problem. And so I just want to remind you that if you put these things together, you've got this book, you've got the resources that are in it, and no one should be asked to read the whole book. No one should ever be asked to read more than 6 pages at a time. That's the chunks in the book. You read the 6 pages, you talk about them. You ask the question of how do they relate? What can I do? There are discussion guides at NCTM's website. And you've got, as Deanna is going to talk in a second, about the website. I want to remind you that when all is said and done, it's the collaborative structures. What warms my heart the most is you recognize that the only way you begin to bring this to scale is gallery walks, professional learning communities, grade level teams, collaborative visits. You get together and look at student work. You come together and do video analysis. You come together and create assessments. I said at the beginning of the day, it is the high quality unit assessments that make all the difference in the world. But it is the collaborative structure that looks at those data, looks at those results and says, whoa, we need to do some things differently. We need to do some reteaching. And so it serves no purpose to come together and blah, 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 blah about principles to actions if one of the actions isn't a significant uptick in what we call professional collaboration in all its different forms. You want to do lesson study because lesson study works in Ames? I go, yes, do it well. You want to sit there and do some video analysis because that's what works in Tipton? Wonderful. Then go and try it. You want to sit there and build in the kind of collaborative structures and coaching in another district because you got the money for that stuff? Then go do it. But what's so neat is that all of those structures need fodder. And the fodder, in large measure, in this area, comes, thank God, from NCTM. So Deanne, talk to us about this website, talk about taking action, and make us jealous of what's available.
All right. As Steve started to share, you have the book. That's a place to start. And there's a wealth of things in there. You know, there are discussions of each teaching practice, but the other principles as well. Vignettes, examples, and those tables. The reflection guide on the NCTM website is a wonderful place to also start. But now, what I wanted to make sure that we mentioned, and April wanted us to do this, was the Principles of Action Toolkit. So how many of you are familiar with the toolkit and have seen it? So there's the website. If you have your computer up, I encourage you to jump right to it as I kind of talk through this. So there's a few modules that are in front of the firewall that you can get at, but most of them are behind for NCTM members, but all you need is one member and then you can get at it. And there are 20 plus professional development modules at this website. And everything that you would need to do for like an in-service, all right? So page 24 is just kind of an overview of that site, and there are modules for elementary, middle school, high school. And then in page 25 of your handout is one sample of one of those modules. So this is Catherine Casey and the multiplication strings, and a lot of the modules are video-based, all right? At least the ones on the website. So you will see the slides are there, and it's PowerPoint, so you can take them, revise them, change them to be specific to your needs, and that's something as one of the committee members that helped put these together, we insisted on that. We're like, no, we don't want them as PDFs, we want them as PowerPoint files so that people can take them, use them, adapt them, and adjust them. There's tasks there, there's video links, video transcripts, list of the teaching practices, and other tools and things that you would need to facilitate that professional development session. And each one is about 1 to 2 hours, perhaps. But you can take it and adjust it and modify it. The table itself, the dark orange bars, actually says what teaching practice is emphasized in the module. In general, each module addresses 2 of the teaching practices. Usually one perhaps in more depth, and then one not quite as deep. So that's a resource. It's wonderful. It's there. You can take it. You can use it. You can adapt it. You can begin to think about yourself and your own practice to work through them, or to engage colleagues in that conversation. The other new resource that's out, and I actually brought one copy of it up here because this is a pre-press version that I just got from NCTM on Monday, so I printed it out and brought it. There's a series of 3 books. We call it the Taking Action series. And what we did is we took what was in the toolkit online and we kind of expanded on it. And then we added more video, more samples, more cases, more resources. So the elementary book, then there's a middle school and a high school book. In each of those books, there are 10 chapters. And chapters 2 through 9, you can see each one focuses on a specific teaching practice. All right? So in the chapter, there are things we call AT outs. analyzing teaching and learning activities. And that's kind of what we did today. In fact, those two dialogue excerpts from Ms. Bouchard and Ms. Chung, they come right from this book. Okay? The questions I posed to you came right from this book. So I pulled some of that out. So each of these ATLs, analyzing teaching and learning activity, uses an artifact of practice. Whether it's a narrative case, discussion excerpts, video clips, student work, and we have a lot of student work in there, for you to think about it, analyze it, and then to think about ways to take that in your own practice and conversations with each other. The other thing in each chapter is there's 2 or 3 pages that provides a research summary for that teaching practice. So it's kind of what's in your blue book, Principles to Action, expanded. So there's that piece on the research, and that's in each chapter. And then there's a section on how that teaching practice promotes equity. All right, so it allows you to take a new lens to the teaching practice and think about it even deeper and what difference it can make for students' learning. And then there's a section at the end of each chapter which lists key messages and then some suggestions for taking the ideas back into your classrooms. And even some suggestions for ways to get started. So in your handout on pages 27 to 28, I actually included a list of all the analyzing, teaching, and learning activities, those ATLs, that are in each chapter. So if this is something you're interested in or using, that you can even get one for your school, or maybe I can see the AEA representatives will probably grab it and use it to think about ways to use it for engaging similar and follow-up conversations that we've started today. So those 2 pages lay out what's the focus of the ATL, what's the classroom artifact of practice, what's the task, and kind of the grade level. So you can see there's kindergarten through 5th grade focused examples of student work and video and cases in the book. And the book itself was written, all 3 of them, as something a teacher could take him or herself as kind of a self-study, but it would also be great for teachers working together across grade levels, book studies, as well as professional developers to take and use that with teachers. So that's a resource. There's a copy here if you want to look at it. But you have the blue book. That's where you should start, right? Next step would be going to the toolkit and pulling some of that out. Then the 3rd step would be perhaps obtaining some of the resources in the Taking Action series. But embedded in all of that is what Steve was saying, right? Those gallery walks into each other's classrooms, those learning walks, those sharing and analysis of videotape. The sharing of student work, just bringing student work from a common assessment or task and having that conversation. And I think Steve said it, I don't know if he said it earlier or not, but observing each other and watching each other is also a place to start. You want to add on a comment? All right, I'll give it to him.
I spent a day in Bay City down at Fort Walton Beach in Florida. The last 2 hours of the day, we had the math coaches and the principals do nothing except plan out how collegial visits would be the norm for the next 3 months of the school year. It was so awesome. I've gotten emails back from them about how much that strategy made an amazing difference. You've got to sit in each other's classes. We've got to do that stuff. So here we go, gang. I mean, typical parents, many of you are typical parents, just like me, and you ask, hey, what'd you learn in school today? And you usually get, I don't know, what did you learn? It's a great question. What'd you learn today in our lessons and all? I could ask you what you learned today and ask you to reflect on it. But instead, I'm going to tell you what empowering parents do. Empowering parents ask their kids the most incredible question of all, and they give them time to think, and they expect an answer. Empowering parents say, what's the biggest question that you have as a result of your day in school today? Oh my goodness, I try it. You go try that. You go try your kids that are at summer camp. Your kids that are, what's the biggest question you have as a result of what you did today? the questioning mind, the questioning attitude. And so gang, your last task, at your tables, what is the most pressing question that you have walking out of here? What is what's hankering? What's nagging? What is it you're most concerned about, unsure of, most questioning? Right now, take 4 minutes at your tables. My most pressing question is, my biggest concern is, right, go. Lots to think about and lots to talk about. You are in luck. 75% of you are going home with a colleague. You start the follow-up process in the car. You raise those questions. You don't talk about your kids and your spouses and what you're cooking for dinner and about your summer vacation. You also talk about how you can answer and resolve those questions, because the answers reside in this room. Deanne has some final thoughts.
All right, the first thing though is my gift to you. So as an NCTM board member, I discovered I can give you discounts on NCTM memberships. So this is a membership code up here that you would put in at the checkout, and it gives $20 off individual memberships or $10 off e-memberships, and $5 for like both undergraduate and graduate students. So you can take that, you can share, if your membership has left, you can renew and use that, or share it with your colleagues, or get a membership for your building or such. So that's just my gift to you. You're welcome to have that code, to share it, and to use it. Okay, we started this afternoon by looking at the math teaching practices teaching framework. So with this framework, we've delved into a couple of these. We've touched on all 8 math teaching practices. Often these teaching practices are referred to not only as effective, but as high leverage. And high leverage is defined by Deborah Ball as those practices that are at the heart of the work of teaching that are most likely to affect student learning. And as I said earlier, I mean, the teaching practices were really a synthesis and consensus of what we've learned over the last 25 years of what makes a difference. These are the non-negotiable things that should be happening in classrooms each and every day, the work that we do. So that framework is there, and as Steve said, the hard questions that you have to take with you with those teaching practices to start to make them a reality in your own classrooms, in your own schools. As we were working on Principals Action, I still remember Steve and I and others having a conversation about, we know there are pockets of excellence in every single school. In fact, most of those pockets of excellence probably came here today or are online and satellite because you're invested and want to make a difference in the teaching of mathematics. But the challenge now is to take what you're learning and how you are becoming more skilled at your own practice, and then sharing that to scale up your whole school as well as your whole district. And this is exciting because April's goal, as she said earlier, is really to have the state of Iowa be at the forefront of a district-wide vision and common language and vision for effective mathematics teaching practice. So we go back to how I also started in thinking about what it means to be smart in mathematics. So Miss Robinson is a second grade teacher in Milwaukee Public Schools, and she asked her students to write about a time when they felt smart, when they felt really smart in mathematics. And one of her second graders said, "A time when I felt really smart was when my teacher, Miss Robinson, gave my class a hard problem that took us a long time to solve it." Now this is a second grader saying, I don't want those easy things that I know the answer to. The second grader knows it's those hard problems we work at where the learning really happens. Another student in her classroom wrote, "I felt really smart in math when I used my number one." So this second grader already knows that using tools in math is important, and tools are part of being smart. Using those cubes and tools is part of being smart. It's not babying it down and other things sometimes we might say, but it's part of the mathematics work. And then the final and the third student said, I felt very smart in math when I work hard and keep going and do your best. So we are here today because we want to do the best for our students so that they can do the best for themselves as learners of mathematics. So I want to close with connecting the teaching practices back to notions of equity and access that have been merged, kind of threaded throughout today from Steve this morning into this afternoon. But the math teaching practices really support daily attention to a focus on access, equity, and empowerment in the mathematics classroom. And some of the ways I think this occurs is the teaching practices provide space and choice for students to engage in reasoning and problem solving in the use of those varied representations and those use of varied strategies. So it gives students space and choice. It also gives us as teachers permission to give students that space and that choice. The teaching practices also emphasize giving students a voice in the mathematics classroom community. It's about their learning. We want to hear those voices. I mean, that's what's changed so much from each of us probably when we were in elementary school, or maybe some of us that are older now when we were in elementary school, that our voices really weren't heard. But we want to hear students' voices. We want them to feel part of that classroom community. And really the outcome and the ultimate goal of all of this, like in Ms. Robinson's classroom, is we want students to have and to develop those positive mathematical identities that will last them a lifetime. So I think we can all agree that the influence of a good teacher can never be erased. You know, we know teaching matters for student learning. We know it makes a difference in their lives. We also know that good teaching does not just happen. It requires ongoing professional learning and professional collaboration so that we can each become more highly skilled in our use of the effective teaching practices. So a driving theme, as I mentioned, is to take those pockets of excellence, your own classrooms, find ways to nudge and engage your colleagues so you can scale up to your whole school, to your whole districts, that effective mathematics teaching and practice. Effective mathematics teaching and learning in your schools. So, with that, I wish you, Steve and I wish you and your students only the best mathematical experiences, and we thank you all for letting us learn with you today.